Veterans, what evidence do you need to submit with your VA compensation claim? In today's video, I'm going to break down and give you some examples of evidence that you need when you're filing your VA compensation claim. Make sure you stick around. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dwayne. I got a video for that Kimball, United States Army veteran and retired VA rating specialist. Before I get into today's video, you know I'm going to have to ask you that favor. Go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and notification button. Also, don't forget to pick up my new book, The VA Compensation Blueprint. It's time to win. Veterans, if you didn't know by now, guess what? It's time to win. Start winning with your VA compensation claim. Today's video. What evidence do you need when you file your VA compensation claim? Now, as a former VA rater, I'm comfortable in telling you it's going to depend on the condition you're claiming and how you're claiming it under one of the ways of VA service connection. You have to get that dialed in first, but don't forget to do that intent to file first, okay? 800-827-1000. I want to do an intent to file for compensation, and then you can follow this blueprint, all right? So what do I mean by what are you claiming and the different ways of service connection? Are you claiming PTSD? Are you claiming tinnitus? Are you claiming a back condition, cancer, or whatever it is, right? The different ways of service connection. You got pre-service aggravation, direct service connection, secondary service connection, presumptive, 1 year, 3 year, 7 year, Camp Lejeune contaminated water, Agent Orange, Gulf War undiagnosis, and the pack that falls under those last two, okay? And then you have increase in a condition that you're already service connected for, all right? Now, this is your claim. If you want to submit 10,000 pages of evidence and have that rater looking for something like a needle in a haystack, a grain of salt in the sea or ocean, by all means, you can do that. But don't be surprised if 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months roll by and you be like, Dwayne, they still haven't rated my case. They haven't even looked at it. It's still in step 3. That could be a reason because the employees are on production quotas. And they got to look at 10,000 pages. That's like reading a book. My first book was only less than 150 pages. And you got them looking at 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 pages. It's crazy, but that's your claim. So let's say you're claiming PTSD. You may need an 0781 PTSD confirmation for a stressor that helps that VSR do a development, okay? If you're claiming SMCL, aid in attendance, you're gonna need a 2680, okay? And as a nugget, you can meet the criteria for SMCL, special monthly compensation. But check this out. They have some trick questions on there. So make sure you take the time and read those questions because I believe, my opinion, is 2 questions on that form that are very tricky, all right? Also, let's say you're filing a claim for individual unemployability. There's a prescribed claim form for that, the 8940. And basically what you're telling the VA is, hey, I cannot obtain or sustain gainful employment because these service-connected conditions prevent me from being employable, okay? Now, IU is not a standalone claim. It is a claim for increase in the conditions that you put on the form that you state prevent you from gainful employment, all right? So if you're at 30% for PTSD, you're telling them, hey, my PTSD prevents me from gainful employment and it's gotten worse, so that's why it's a claim for increase, okay? I have videos explaining IU on my YouTube channel. Make sure you check it out. Now, the VA also has public DBQs on their website that you can take to your private examiner, whether it be medical or mental, and have them to complete it. But I'm gonna give you a quick example, and this is a huge nugget, people. If I was going through this process again, 800-827-1000, I wanna do an intent to file for compensation. You have 365 days to submit a claim form. So as soon as I do that intent to file, I already have my medical or mental health examiner pointed out. I'm gonna start getting treatment. Maybe every week, every other week, no less than once a month, okay? And I'm building that paper trail. I'm getting that diagnosis. I'm understanding the 38 CFR, the M21-1, and looking for VA regulations that can impact my personal claim. Now, it could be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, however long you want to continue to get that treatment, and then you submit that claim. I have a video where I show you a quick way to upload your claim to the VA's website using Quick Submit. Just go to my channel, type in Quick Submit, and that video will pop up, and I'm walking you through it, okay? Now I've got this evidence that I'm going to submit with my prescribed claim form, whether it be IU using that 8940, maybe it's an increase in PTSD, migraine secondary to tinnitus, whatever. That evidence is going to go along with my claim. Now, let's go with pre-service aggravation. You're going to need a current diagnosis. You're going to have to show you had a complaint or injury, disease, or diagnosis before you went into the military. You need that along with that current diagnosis. And then you're going to have to prove how your military service impacted that particular condition. You can complete a lay statement. Hopefully you submitted that for your request to get a copy of your claims file, which should show complaints, treatment, or diagnosis while you were in service. That's pre-service aggravation, okay? So you can see, as I go through these, you're gonna see the different evidence that you may need based on the condition you're claiming and how you're claiming it. Direct service connection, you need 3 elements: current diagnosis, a link in service, and a nexus. If you decide not to go out and get a public DBQ, you still need a diagnosis. Hopefully, again, you submitted that FOIA request and got a copy of your military medical records to show that link in service. And so as a former VA Raider, I'm looking for a diagnosis, treatment, complaint, injury, or disease while you were on active duty, okay? But most importantly, that treatment after service. Intent to file, if you didn't have any treatment, and it's been a few years, intent to file, start going to the doctor. Start going to the doctor. Getting things documented, showing that continuity, all right? Now, increase. You're already service connected, but where a lot of veterans fail, they don't determine the criteria for the next higher percentage for the condition they're service connected for before they submit that claim for increase. So for example, if you're 10% for a back strain, what is the 20% criteria? A lot of veterans will say, Dwayne, well, I got a herniated disc. Dwayne, I had an MRI, I had an x-ray, I take injections, I have this TENS unit in my back, all this other stuff. And I say, okay, what is the 20% criteria for that condition? Better yet, what is the diagnostic code for that condition you're service connected for? And they just start talking. And that lets me know you don't know what the criteria is. But check this out, people. The VA gives us the answer. In this situation, they gives us the answer. They even send it to us. They mail it to us. And veterans still miss it. It's in the rating decision. In that rating decision, they granted 10% for that back strain. They tell you in the next paragraph why the 20% was not warranted. That's the answer to the test. And that's for every condition. If you're maxed out, like say 10% for tinnitus, 50% for migraines, they're going to tell you this is the maximum percentage that you can obtain for these conditions. Veterans, do you know I rated cases where veterans were 10% for tinnitus, and their VSO, their VSO put a claim in for increase. And I was like, confirm and continue. This is the maximum benefit. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. A VSO actually did this? I've seen it, okay? Now, secondary. Let's say you're claiming left knee, secondary to the right knee. You need a current diagnosis. The primary condition has to be service-connected, and you're going to need a nexus. But more so, you have to be able to reasonably articulate that symptomology when you get to that CMP exam, especially if you don't have your own DBQ and Nexus statement, okay? Presumptive, diagnosis. One common denominator in all the different ways of service connection, diagnosis, okay? Make sure you have that diagnosis. And then, depending on the presumptive, you're going to have to prove, or the VA will have to prove as well, what location you were at. 9 times out of 10, all presumptives, they're going to have a location, minus the 1 year, 3 year, and 7 year presumptive, okay? And then the majority of those presumptives have conditions in that regulation. So therefore, when you say, hey, I'm claiming a 1 year presumptive under 38 CFR 3.309, subpart A, I'm looking at your diagnosis, and then I'm going to that regulation to see if it's on the list. If it's not on the list, I'm going to go to your medical records to see, hey, can I possibly schedule a CMP exam based off direct service connection, that link in service? If the answer is no, denied. Or now they have TARA. They may try to get you service connected under TARA. So there could be 3 ways that the VA may try to get you service connected. But again, people, it all starts with the evidence. Now, I'm no fan of telling veterans, submit everything. The kitchen sink, the bathroom sink, the sink outside, in the outhouse, your neighbor's sink. If you decide to do that, that is totally up to you. I want to keep my evidence short, direct, and to the point. So with that being said, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and as always, share this video with your fellow veteran. Thank you.